What's up, guys? This is Joe from Q1 Wines, and today we're going to dive into one of our four producers. This producer is located in a place called Umbria. So, Umbria is basically central Italy between Florence and Rome. And fun fact, it is the only landlocked section in the entire Italian boot. So I've been there many times, was lucky enough to study in Umbria, in Perugia, which is kind of one of the central towns there. And it is not quite the Amalfi Coast or the beach Italian summer that you're imagining. Instead, it is an awesome kind of college town, similar to Boston, at least in my opinion, that is filled with these really cool wine regions. And outside of the city of Perugia, you can find an area called Montefalco. So Montefalco is a place that is absolutely famous for a specific grape called Sagrantino. And Sagrantino is unlike anything else on the market, at least again, in my opinion. So Sagrantino, it is a huge, big, bold grape that produces similar wines that are very big, bold. Think Cabernet on steroids, right? So if you know what tannins are those things that dry out the top of your mouth and your tongue and your gums when you're drinking a glass of wine. They typically come from the stems, the grapes, and other components of the vines that are taken into the winery when the wine is made. And they kind of soften over time. So tannins for a very young Sagrantino that was made in the last few years will typically be a little bit more robust. Whereas in the future, as these wines age, these tannins will soften a bit. And that is one of the many reasons why wine is getting better with age. Not all wines, but certainly Sagrantino. So let's talk a little bit about the producer. We have two wines from the producer, which is Valdangius. We have a Montefalco Sagrantino, which is their kind of staple wine. Sagrantino, again, being that grape that is famous in the region. And then we have a Montefalco Rosso. So in Italy, when a region is kind of first and the word rosso is second, typically what that means is it is a blend of grapes that are either typical of that region or international grapes. So an international grape example is Cabernet Sauvignon or Merlot. So let's kick it off with the Montefalco Rosso. The Montefalco Rosso is a red blend of 65% Sangiovese. Then we've got 15% Sagrantino, 10% Merlot, and 10% Cabernet Sauvignon. So a really cool blend, and ultimately what this is going to provide is a little bit more roundness, a little bit more of an approachable wine for the average person in comparison to the Montefalco Sagrantino. So one really cool thing about all of these wines from Valdangius is that the quantity is low and the quality is really high. So, for example, the Montefalco Rosso is only produced 6,500 bottles a year, which is nothing if you think about millions and millions of bottles coming from those classic kind of brands and producers that you know, like Josh or Jordan, for example. So, think very, very small quantities. Then we're going to bounce into the Montefalco Sagrantino. So the Montefalco Sagrantino, as you would guess, is made out of 100% of Sagrantino. So there's not a blend of red grapes here, it's just one grape. These are even more rare as there's only 3,000 of these made every single year. So the other thing that is really, really interesting about the region is their aging requirements. And what you'll see in all of these producers in Umbria is that they will put their own spin on how they should age the wines before they are released according to the law in Italy. Yes, it is literally a law that in each region they have their own version of how long a bottle is supposed to age and how it's supposed to age before it gets into my hands as the importer and into your hands as the consumer. So really cool fact about the Montefalco Sagrantino, this is going to age for 24 months, so 2 entire years, in large oak barrels. So as soon as the wine is kind of vinified and it becomes wine and not just grape juice, 2 years in oak. Then it gets 12 months in amphora, which is basically like a smaller cement tank. Finally, it gets another 18 months in bottle. So you can imagine how much time and energy goes into this one specific bottle before it is even able to be sold in Italy and abroad. So really, really, really cool. Talking a little bit more about the winery. So the winery right now is run by Danilo. Danilo has taken over this entire estate from his father, and they have been farming for a very, very long time. So the ownership of the land began in the early 1900s. They had a few hectares of vineyards that were also used in that time, or land in that time, to harvest olives and a bunch of other crops that still are in the area today. So Danilo is a fourth generation winemaker, and where you get this name Valdangius from is a combination of the current generation's names, which is really cool. So you have Vale, which is in Italian literally means it's worth, but kind of used a little bit more like strength, or come on, let's go, right? So Vale. Then you have Danilo, which is the winemaker right now. You have Giuseppe, which is Danilo's father. Sandra, which is Danila's sister. So Valdangius is the combination of all of these names of the family. It is truly a family product that is making wines that are super typical for this awesome region, which is Montefalco. Give it a shot if you're into big wines with some tannins, some really cool fruit components, and also just a really high level of complexity. And what complexity means in wine is really totally subjective, but you have to taste it to try it, to know it, and I promise you will not regret it. Reach out in the comments if you have questions about Montefalco, about Sagrantino, or about Valdangius.